Section 9, Harakiri, the icon of samurai honor. When most people outside Japan imagine samurai honor, they picture one dramatic act, harakiri, or seppuku. The ritual is famous. A disgraced warrior kneels, plunges a short blade into his stomach, and ends his life with stoic resolve. It's seen as the ultimate proof of loyalty, courage, and dignity. But while this image is powerful, the historical reality is more complicated, and much darker. Section 10, the reality of seppuku. In popular culture, harakiri is usually shown as a voluntary act. A samurai, shamed by failure, chooses death over dishonor. In truth, many cases of seppuku were not voluntary at all. Often, it was a form of capital punishment. When a samurai betrayed his lord, lost a battle, or committed a crime, he could be ordered to take his own life. Refusing was not an option. In this sense, seppuku was less about preserving honor and more about enforcing control. Instead of a spontaneous act of bravery, it was closer to a ritualized execution, one that allowed both the samurai and his family to avoid the shame of a public beheading. Section 11, the ritual in detail. The ritual itself was highly formalized. The samurai would dress in white, sometimes write a farewell poem, and sit on a tatami mat. He would then use a short sword, or tanto, to cut across his abdomen. But here is another truth. In many cases, the samurai did not die from his own hand. To shorten his suffering, an appointed assistant called the keishakunin, often a close friend or retainer, would stand behind him and deliver a swift decapitation after the initial cut. This ensured the death was quick and preserved dignity, but it also reveals how the ritual was less about the warrior's personal choice and more about ceremony, control, and appearances. Section 12, famous cases of seppuku. One of the most famous incidents is the story of the 47 Ronin in the early 18th century. After avenging their lord by killing his enemy, they turned themselves in. Instead of being executed like criminals, they were allowed to commit seppuku, turning their punishment into a story of loyalty and sacrifice that is still celebrated in Japan today. But not all cases were so glorified. Many samurai, even high-ranking generals, were forced to commit seppuku as a punishment for political missteps. For example, during the Tokugawa era, when rival clans or officials fell out of favor, seppuku was imposed as a way to remove them while maintaining the illusion of honor. This shows the duality of harakiri, sometimes exalted as the highest form of loyalty, sometimes nothing more than a ritualized death sentence. Section 13, the psychological impact. What's often overlooked is how seppuku also served as a form of social control. If a samurai knew that failure would not only cost his own life, but also bring disgrace to his family, he was more likely to remain obedient. In this way, harakiri functioned less as a noble choice and more as a deterrent against disobedience. It is also worth noting that many accounts of voluntary seppuku were later romanticized. Chronicles and plays glorified the deaths of warriors to create examples of perfect loyalty, but historians believe many of these stories were embellished or exaggerated. Section 14, Harakiri in the modern imagination. The power of the image of harakiri outlived the samurai themselves. In the 19th and 20th centuries, stories of seppuku fascinated Western visitors. Writers described it as exotic, terrifying, and yet admirable. During World War II, the same spirit was invoked again. Soldiers were told it was better to die than to be captured, echoing the old samurai ideal of death before dishonor. While not ritualized in the same way, this mindset fueled fanatical resistance, and tragedies such as mass suicides among civilians in Okinawa. In this way, harakiri became not only a symbol of the samurai, but also a lasting myth used to justify extreme devotion and sacrifice. Section 15, the samurai in Western imagination. Even though the age of the samurai ended more than 150 years ago, the image of the noble warrior has never faded. In fact, it grew stronger once Japan opened to the West in the 19th century. Foreign travelers were fascinated by tales of these mysterious warriors who lived and died by a strict code. Writers and journalists described samurai as exotic, disciplined, and even romantic. By the 20th century, Western films and novels began to incorporate this imagery. The samurai became the Japanese counterpart to the medieval knight, a figure of martial skill and strict honor. This comparison was not historically accurate, but it was captivating. Section 16, Hollywood and the reinvention of samurai honor. Movies played a huge role in solidifying this myth. Akira Kurosawa's classics, such as Seven Samurai, 1954, introduced the samurai to global audiences as larger-than-life figures, embodying sacrifice and courage. Later, Hollywood amplified this further. The Last Samurai, 2003, portrayed samurai as the last defenders of tradition against modern corruption. Even though the film romanticized history, it cemented the idea of samurai as pure warriors of honor. This myth spread beyond film. Video games like Ghost of Tsushima and anime like Rurouni Kenshin and Blue Eye Samurai continue to reinforce the concept of the warrior who follows a sacred code. The result? For many outside Japan, the samurai code feels more real than the messy, complicated truth of history. Section 17. The appeal of the myth. Why does this image endure? Because it speaks to universal desires. The longing for a clear moral code in a world of chaos. The fascination with warriors who would rather die than break their honor. The romance of discipline, loyalty, and sacrifice. In a sense, the myth of the samurai offers what reality cannot, a perfect, idealized example of what humans imagine warriors should be. Section 18. The dark truth beneath the legend. But as we've seen, the reality was far more complex. Samurai often betrayed their lords when survival demanded it. Harakiri was frequently forced, not voluntary. Bushido was written and rewritten to serve political needs, from Edo-period philosophy to World War II propaganda. The noble code of the samurai was never a timeless law written in stone. It was a story, reshaped again and again, to inspire loyalty, justify authority, or appeal to foreign admiration. And yet, this very flexibility is why the myth survived. The samurai code could be anything people wanted it to be, a moral guide, a weapon of war, or an exotic legend for global audiences. Section 19. Modern Reflections. Today, the samurai spirit still resonates. Martial arts schools around the world teach Bushido as a philosophy of discipline and respect. Business leaders quote samurai wisdom in books and seminars. Pop culture endlessly reimagines samurai in anime, manga, and video games. The samurai may be gone, but their myth remains alive, perhaps stronger than ever. But when we peel away the legend, we see a darker reality. Honor was often propaganda. Loyalty was fragile. And the ultimate symbol of dignity, Harakiri, was as much a punishment as it was a choice. Conclusion. So the next time you hear about the noble samurai code, remember, what survives today is not a mirror of the past, but a myth polished through centuries of storytelling. The true story of the samurai is not just one of loyalty and honor, but also of betrayal, control, and power. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson, that history is never as clean, noble, or pure as the legends we choose to believe.